In the last video, I talked about the multidimensional frequencies of words from 3D to 4D and 5D. Today, I want to bring the same concept to talk about the different perspective shifts that can happen in everyday situations like just going for a walk or watching TV. Hi, I'm Will Caminada, the Multidimensional Guide, and I'm here to help you awaken, heal, and expand your consciousness. If you're looking to learn how to embrace and embody your multidimensionality, then you're in the right place. I want to bring today some examples of daily activities and some life experiences and show you the 3D, 4D, 5D perspective on each of them so that this can help you in shifting your perspective towards them. It's really important to remember that the 3D perspective or the 4D perspective aren't bad or worse than 5D. They are just different perspectives. If we keep thinking in terms of better or worse, higher dimension is better, lower dimension is worse, then this keeps us in a duality mindset, which is a very 3D mindset. And this can only be a negative thing if you don't have the higher dimensional awareness over it. So in other words, if one is not able to see the higher perspective on 3D duality, then one is still limited by the 3D aspects such as duality, ego, linearity, fear, and etc. Also, it's important to say that the 5D perspective or experience of such activities doesn't exclude or disregard the other quote-unquote lower perspective. It actually embraces them. Hence, I'm always using the term embracing your multidimensionality. So I hope this is clear, or I hope this gets clearer as I give the examples. So let's just start with a simple walk in the park. From a 3D perspective, the experience of going for a walk might be a very linear experience, linear in time and execution. You may have a limited amount of time to experience it, and while you're walking, your mind might be thinking about something in the future, like what you're going to have for dinner, or about something that happened in the past, whether it was a few hours ago or a few years ago. The awareness around your physical body too may be the focus, and maybe also its limitations. So you may be focusing on that knee that's a little funky, or how tired you are, maybe even complaining about the weather or the loud noise of the crickets. From a 4D perspective, you start to gain more awareness of your mental activity and use it as a tool for your benefit. So for instance, you might notice the urge of complaining about something or even becoming more tired, and then use a mental positive affirmation to shift your experience. So in other words, you start using the power of your mind for your own benefit rather than letting the ego speak louder. Your connection with time might shift too, as you will experience more mindful moments and just become more present in what you are doing and where you are. Now, from a 5D perspective, all of what I said might still happen, but the key difference is your awareness of them. You're able to shift your mental activity more quickly, or even better, you set the intention before you start the walk. You choose an affirmation for yourself, a mantra to keep it in mind. And this helps you to become more present, more conscious of your body, of the environment around you, of the energy within you and around you. So suddenly, a simple walk can be not just your physical practice, but your mental, your emotional, and your spiritual practice. In other words, your multi-dimensional practice. If this is making more sense now, let me know in the comments. Now, another example that may be controversial is watching the news. So from a 3D perspective, when you're watching the news, all seems horrible and terrible, fear takes over, and you may say things like, this is terrible, this is the end of the world, this is scary, or this world is full of X, Y, Z. There's basically a strong vibration of fear, even if they don't know exactly what it is that they're fearing. And unconsciously, it could just be fear of the end of their finite lives. From a 4D perspective, you start to recognize the tactics, the strategies that they are using to inject fear in you. You understand that the press, the media, the big industries, or even the higher dimensional beings behind all of this have an agenda, and their agenda is to keep you in fear and in the illusion that you have no control over anything. And this is basically what keeps people in the so-called 3D matrix. So already there is a more expanded awareness around it, but the news might still trigger some heavy emotions in you that may trigger fear and trauma within you, and that's okay too. So the main difference from 4D to 5D is that you're able to recognize that, yes, from a 3D perspective, a war is a horrible thing, and you're able to recognize the propaganda behind it all, and you're able to recognize your emotions and transmute them for healing, your own healing and the healing of the collective. You're also able to find neutrality in your emotion, but note that neutrality doesn't equal apathy. There's a very fine line between both, and I'll leave a video here where I talk about neutrality in 5D. So in other words, you're anchored in your 5D heart center, and because you're anchored in your 5D heart center, you're able to hold space for others and for yourself to feel whatever you feel, and take the time to also recognize that from a 5D perspective, this is part of the evolutionary process. If you want to learn more actual practices to be able to have your heart center as a constant anchor in your daily life, consider joining my program/community, The Multidimensional Self, by going to www.themultidimensionalself.com. As always, you'll find the link in the description. Now, one more example that can also be very challenging for most of us: having an argument with a loved one. And I want to preface this by saying that relationships in general are here to help us grow and evolve, and it's not always pretty. Your parents especially will trigger you, your siblings, your partners, but at the end of the day, love is really the ultimate lesson. So from a 3D perspective, you may be triggered by a loved one, and this immediately brings an emotion that you perceive as a negative emotion, such as anger, disappointment, frustration, sadness, or even the need to shut off from the situation. Here, you don't know where the trigger is coming from, why you're triggered. You don't even think about it because the speed from the trigger to the emotion to the action or behavior is super quick. And that's when you end up acting on the trigger, reacting rather, and saying things to hurt the other person because in your mind, they are wrong and you are right. Again, the duality mindset. Now, in 4D, there is more awareness around your emotions, first of all. And that's probably because by now, you've been on a healing journey yourself, and you're expanding your awareness of your emotional and mental bodies. And so this helps you to sort of track where that trigger is coming from. You recognize that your partner said something that wasn't intentional to hurt you, but you felt hurt because of a childhood trauma, for example. And so you may be even reactive, but at some point you're able to see where this is coming from. And the other thing that happens is that there is a larger gap between the trigger and the emotion, and in that gap you're then able to take a breath, pause, and don't say anything hurtful, or don't text that angry message, or don't storm off. In 5D, this gap becomes shorter in that sense that you're able to go through all this process more quickly. You may still be triggered, but quickly realize where it's coming from so that you're not reactive. And number one, you see it as an opportunity for more healing. And second of all, you also see it as an opportunity to be sovereign, to set your boundaries, to be assertive, which is a very 5D characteristic. When you're in your heart center, you are sovereign. That's what the Pleiadians always say. And I also would say this is a practice of oneness or unity consciousness, which pushes us to practice seeing the other being in front of us as an extension of ourselves. And from this perspective, you're able to have more compassion, forgiveness, love for them and for yourself too. I would love to know how these perspective shifts resonate with you. Which of these examples made you think or feel more? And is there any other example you would like me to talk more about? Meet me in the comments. Check out this video about 5D neutrality and heart center, and this one about sovereignty. As always, keep shining your light, keep your heart open, and let love lead the way. I love you. See you in the next episode.